I've lost count. Maybe 20 times I've set foot in Vegas, but I swear this is a ghost town. A chilling, unnatural quiet I have never witnessed before. You can find entire casino parking garages completely empty, a sight that should be impossible. The streets are so clear you can drive without a hint of traffic, a disturbingly smooth ride through a city on life support.
I'm beyond concerned. I'm alarmed. Driving down the strip to work is like traversing a graveyard. I barely see a single visitor.
This is supposed to be Vegas? The city that never sleeps? What a sick joke. But the devastating truth is there is absolutely no one here. It's a desolate wasteland. This is the new Las Vegas, once a glittering paradise, the golden ticket to a fantasy. It was a siren's call that lured millions from every corner of the globe, all chasing a manufactured dream. People would toil all year, scraping together every last penny, just for a few nights of illusion and the false promise of a big win. Yet now, in the chilling reality of 2025, that toxic allure has shattered. The millions of tourists who once choked these avenues have simply vanished. They've left in their wake a hollow, silent summer, and a gaping wound in an economy recklessly built on the fragile foundation of tourism. The streets are barren. The once thriving commercial hearts now just rows of shuttered storefronts. The roar of slot machines is gone. The euphoric cries of winners silenced, replaced by an oppressive stillness. The sound of a city teetering on the absolute brink of total collapse. Once the dazzling beacon of the American dream, Las Vegas now stands as a brutal, undeniable warning of the catastrophic fragility of an economy built on smoke, mirrors, and illusion. Is this suffocating silence just a temporary lull, or is it the death rattle of a bygone era? In this investigation, we expose the truth. We are not just reciting a list of casualties. We are performing an autopsy on this collapse, from the boarded-up businesses to the shattered lives of the workers and families left behind in the wreckage. Does Vegas have any chance of clawing its way back from the abyss, or has its final tragic chapter already been written? Let's uncover the horrifying answer right now. To set foot in Las Vegas in 2025 is to witness a profound betrayal of memory. For anyone who ever held a shred of love for this city, the feeling is like having a vibrant piece of your own soul ripped away. A memory that once blazed with neon fire, now reduced to a ghostly, fading ember. This place was once hailed as a condensed version of the entire world, a fantasy where you could wander through ancient Egypt, drift along the canals of romantic Venice, stride through a glamorous New York, and stand beneath the Eiffel Tower of a miniature Paris. That dream has evaporated, leaving behind a desolate, empty shell, and there is no more brutal monument to this decay than the Primm Outlet. Back in 2001, it reigned as one of the top 5 largest outlets in the entire nation. A commercial titan boasting roughly 100 of the world's most famous brands. Nike, Tommy Hilfiger, H&M, Calvin Klein, Coach, Michael Kors, all surrounded by bustling food courts that were perpetually swarmed with tourists. But now, it has all been erased. Nothing remains but haunting rows of empty tables and chairs. The old, worn signs hang like tombstones over stores that have simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a scene straight out of a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Today, in that entire sprawling complex, only a single, tiny store, Sandth Thrift USA, clings to life, engulfed by an overwhelming silence, as its long, winding corridors lie completely deserted. It's a horrifying testament to the rot. This catastrophe wasn't one single blow. It was a perfect storm of greed and failure, a convergence of devastating factors. First, we must condemn its fatal geographical flaw. Marooned in the desert, intentionally isolated from the heart of Las Vegas, the Primm Outlet made a deadly gamble, relying solely on the transient river of tourists flowing between Los Angeles and Vegas. When the COVID-19 pandemic choked off that lifeline, the entire district was plunged into an immediate death spiral. To make matters worse, the very name Las Vegas in the summer of 2025 has become a byword for global disgust. Shameless price gouging and blatant predatory scams have poisoned the well, turning legions of loyal visitors into its most bitter critics. Listen to this Canadian tourist, a man who came to Vegas for years, who frankly admits, "I used to travel to Vegas every summer and settle here every winter. This place was my second home, my sanctuary." But the way they've exploited their most loyal customers is a disgusting betrayal of trust. "I swear I will never feed another single cent into this city's corrupt, collapsing machine." From a place that once peddled the glittering promise of consumer paradise, the Primm Outlet now stands as a gateway to the failed American dream. And be warned, the contagion didn't stop at its gates. A cascade of once mighty names began to fall, from Ashley Furniture to the iconic TGI Fridays chain with its 4 locations inside Boyd Gaming casinos like the Orleans and Samstown, the Aliante and the Gold Coast. All of them are now silently shuttered or swallowed by bankruptcy. Those spaces, which once created precious memories for millions, are now just fading, tragic fragments of a forgotten time, slowly crumbling into the dust of a forgotten era. Gaze down those derelict corridors at the peeling signs and the ghost of fading memories, and you'll be struck by a horrifying truth. Las Vegas isn't just losing its malls. It's torching the trust of a generation that once hailed it as the peak of the American dream. When the very places that once held our most treasured experiences and memories decay into hollowed out ghost towns, what in God's name is left for the generations to come? A dream that still glitters, or just silent, sun-scorched ruins in the desert? This plague of emptiness in Las Vegas is no longer confined to its dead malls. It's a contagion spreading through the city's very arteries, consuming even the institutions once considered the soul of this tourist paradise. The alarm bells began screaming in 2024 when Ocean One Bar and Grill, a bastion of a Vegas for everyone with its $4.99 lunch specials, was forced to close its doors forever. From that moment on, the $99 hotel room became a cruel joke, magically inflating to $175 after a barrage of hidden surcharges and a scandalous $55 resort fee, a 13.38% room tax, and the sheer audacity of a fee to use the pool even when the pool was locked shut. A Vegas vacation is now a rigged game, a bet you lose the instant you book the room. The legendary casinos, the Bellagio, Caesar's Palace, the MGM Grand, have become echoing deserted cathedrals of greed, their brilliant neon signs now serving only to cast a harsh light on the crushing emptiness. The savvy tourists have already fled, seeking sanctuary in local casinos where affordable rooms and buffets still exist, where parking is still free, and where blackjack still pays 3 to 2 with $5 tables, a species that has been hunted to extinction on the Strip. For countless people, this choice isn't just about money. It's a desperate act of escaping the sickening feeling of being legally mugged on the Las Vegas Boulevard Strip. One Canadian tourist didn't mince words, exclaiming, "Who in their right mind would go somewhere just to be bled dry? Vegas has sold its soul. Farewell, we are never coming back." But it gets so much worse. The glittering perimeters of these casinos are now choked by rows of squalid, makeshift tents. The homeless, many of whom in a gut-wrenching twist of irony once worked for these very establishments, now huddle for shelter right behind the brightly lit billboards promising fortunes. Under the punishing heat of over 115 degrees Fahrenheit, tents stitched together from scrap fabric and wooden pallets and plastic tarps now stretch across the Strip like a festering wound. Once a playground for tourists and fantasies of instant wealth, the homelessness crisis has become a grim, permanent fixture of the Vegas landscape. In 2025 alone, Clark County projects a staggering 8,000 homeless individuals. And according to the Southern Nevada Homeless Continuum of Care report, they're no longer hidden under bridges. They are setting up urban encampments right on the doorsteps of restaurants and luxury hotels. And even at the very entrances of world-famous casinos. The streets that once welcomed tourists with open arms now force them to walk faster. their stomachs churning with unease. Businesses are sounding the alarm, terrified that this nightmare is driving away their middle-class customers, especially seniors, the very group that has been the financial backbone of Las Vegas for decades. The verdicts on Reddit, YouTube, and TripAdvisor are piling up into a mountain of outrage. Overcharged, unwelcome, and utterly deceived. These are no longer just scattered complaints. This is a deafening roar signaling that Vegas is truly lost. The only success they can claim is having brutally pushed out the very people who once gave this city its heart. For anyone who remembers the Vegas dream of 1995, when a handful of cash could buy 3 full days of joy, today's reality is a violent shock. $40 for a miserable snack. $20 for a single slice of pizza, and $10 for a glass of water are the brutal tombstones marking the death of a golden age. They didn't leave because they lost at the tables. They left because they were made to feel like they no longer belonged. And it is precisely those who stayed, for work, for nostalgia, or simply because they had nowhere else to run, who are witnessing the city's collapse in horrifying detail. They don't just see Vegas changing, they feel the rot deep in their bones. A cancer eating away the soul of a city that once vibrated with life. So if even Las Vegas, the supposed shining beacon of the American dream, is now this empty, broken husk, then where else can that belief possibly survive? And when the dreams of an entire generation have been sold out for hidden fees and predatory prices, and masked by blinding lights that obscure a sickening reality, what will future generations even bother searching for in this city? There was a time when Las Vegas was a promise, a destination where people knew a few $100s could buy a vacation for the ages, a gluttonous buffet, a night in a sparkling hotel, and even a fighting chance to change their luck at the tables. But by 2025, a horrifying narrative emerged. Visitors felt less like guests and more like prey, ensnared by a glittering illusion. The neon still blazed, but the moment the bill hit the table, that dazzling light soured into the bitter taste of betrayal. A damning survey from Travel Plus Leisure exposed the truth. Las Vegas now ranks among the top 5 most outrageously overpriced destinations in the entire United States. A staggering 60% of tourists now report feeling utterly fleeced, the cost a grotesque mockery of the value delivered. Because behind that facade of dazzling lights lurks a predatory system of escalating prices, bleeding guests dry for every single experience. From rooftop cocktails soaring past $30 to concert tickets breaching the $200 mark, this city is systematically stripping away simple pleasures and locking them behind a wall of elite privilege. And in this greedy transformation, Vegas is sacrificing its very soul. That once welcoming spirit. The city's most loyal patrons, the older generations who have returned for decades, are now crying out that Vegas has been stolen from them. On an AARP forum, an American over 60 years old lamented, "We used to consider Vegas our sacred annual getaway, but now we're nickel and dimed for every breath we take. I don't even recognize this place I once adored." This predatory pricing isn't just an inconvenience, it's carving deep, cancerous wounds into the city's social fabric. As the middle class is priced out and driven away, the city's entire financial structure teeters precariously on the whims of a tiny, high-spending elite. This dangerous dependency has forced hotels and casinos into a VIP-first death spiral, lavishing opulent experiences on a chosen few, while callously abandoning the very masses who built this city's legend. The catastrophic result? A city fracturing before our very eyes. A gilded playground for the ultra-wealthy, and a cold, unforgiving wasteland for everyone else. But the rot runs deeper. This insatiable greed isn't just confined to the tourist traps. It's poisoning the lives of the very people who keep the city running. A chilling 2024 report from the Nevada Housing Coalition revealed that rent has exploded by over 35% in a mere 5 years, brutally forcing out the hospitality workers, the very backbone of this city, condemning them to squalor or exiling them from the very place that once promised them a future. Mark my words, A city cannot survive when it devours its own. So is there any escape from this downward spiral? A few corporate giants are tentatively, perhaps desperately, testing a different path. Hilton, for one, is rolling out a clear stay pricing program, a radical concept that actually discloses all costs up front instead of ambushing guests with them at checkout. Meanwhile, some off-strip resorts are desperately trying to lure back trust by adopting all-inclusive models, a desperate attempt to signal some semblance of transparency and safety. Could this be the first faltering step toward rebuilding the trust that Vegas is so recklessly squandering? The very foundation of its existence? From a beacon of hope that once promised a shot at a better life, Las Vegas is now on the verge of becoming a grotesque monument to unchecked, soul-crushing greed. The tragedy is, people no longer come here expecting to lose at the tables. They come here dreading the moment they have to ask, am I being gouged for a dream that's already dead? If a city built on trust and open arms is now infamous for its predatory prices and shattered expectations, then what in God's name will be left for the next generation? And is this moniker, Scam Vegas, truly just the grumbling of disgruntled tourists? Or is it the horrifying new identity of a city that once proudly called itself the entertainment capital of the world? It's hard to recall another time in modern history when a city has managed to simultaneously dazzle and disgust its visitors on the scale that Las Vegas is achieving in 2025. The neon glow still poisons the Nevada desert sky, and the boulevard still screams with the hollow glitz of a supposed paradise. But when that bill is slammed on the table, a chilling question echoes in the minds of so many. Is this a place to chase a dream, or have I walked into a colossal glittering trap? The visitor experience has been warped beyond recognition. What was once a bargain now just feels like a swindle. A basic hotel breakfast can bleed you for up to $25, while a simple cup of coffee is priced at an obscene 3 times the national average. And the shows, the very soul of this city, now have entry-level tickets that laugh in your face at over $50, forcing families into an impossible choice: go into debt or be denied the very experiences that lured them here in the first place. This isn't just a feeling. A 2024 report from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms the nightmare. It shows the consumer price index in the Las Vegas area has skyrocketed by nearly 20% in just 4 years, a rate that dwarfs the national average. And where did the price gouging hit hardest? In recreation and tourism services, a cold, statistical confirmation of every tourist's worst fears. For countless people, the spontaneous joy of a Vegas getaway is dead, replaced by a cold, calculated financial gamble that demands meticulous planning. But what's truly terrifying is that this exorbitant price tag isn't just bleeding wallets dry, it's systematically destroying trust. The older generation, those who remember the soul of Vegas from the 70s and 80s, are now crying foul, feeling utterly cast aside when every single detail, every minor comfort is slapped with yet another fee. The entire resort experience devolves into a sickening feeling of being systematically exploited. Travel forums are ablaze with a torrent of furious complaints and bitter warnings. From the outrageous price of a simple meal and the endless barrage of service fees, to the chilling realization that they are no longer welcome, the fallout is catastrophic, directly striking event organizers, small business owners, and even the very service workers on the front lines. Countless small businesses, the lifeblood of the city that depend on tourist dollars, are now reporting devastating double-digit revenue collapses, forcing them into the heartbreaking decision to slash staff or shutter their dreams entirely. This is a city built on the backs of tourists. But when those very tourists feel like they're being treated as nothing more than prey for a price gouging machine, the critical question becomes, how long can this parasitic version of Vegas possibly survive? And yet, amidst the wreckage, a few faint glimmers of hope flicker. Some of the corporate giants, the architects of this mess, are finally waking up to the catastrophic risks of bleeding their customers dry. Marriott International, for instance, has just unveiled an all-inclusive transparency package, a desperate gambit where all costs are supposedly laid bare,
From the moment of booking, a calculated move to feign a sense of security and transparency. Is this truly a solution to rebuild the shattered trust? The one priceless asset Las Vegas needs to cling to its global iconic status? Or is this a desperate last-ditch effort that's simply too little too late? If the Vegas dream of today is nothing more than a nightmare of outrageous bills and the bitter taste of betrayal, then what will future generations possibly remember of this place? The dazzling light of a promise? Or the suffocating darkness of a monumental swindle? Some cities can paper over their deep, festering cracks with a thin veneer of glamorous paint. But Las Vegas in 2025 is tragically not one of them. Because even as the neon signs blaze with their hollow promises and the billboards scream of a fantasy life, the grim reality on the ground exposes a horrifying, contradictory truth. This is a city trapped in a catastrophic downward spiral of economic decay, a vortex from which there may be no easy escape. The root of the cancer is its fatal addiction to tourism. And now, as the lifeblood of visitors dwindles, the entire ecosystem that feeds on it is crumbling into dust. Taxi companies, car rental agencies, forgotten souvenir shops, even the printing presses that churn out the glossy posters for the shows are all watching their revenues evaporate. A chilling 2024 study from the Brookings Institution laid it bare. A staggering 55% of the city's entire workforce is chained, directly or indirectly, to the fortunes of the tourism and entertainment machine. This means that every single empty seat in a cavernous theater, every ghost-like unoccupied hotel room sends a shockwave of devastation tearing through countless other industries. The crisis is now seeping into the suburban neighborhoods, home to tens of thousands of service workers who are staring into the abyss. As their incomes are slashed, simple daily spending evaporates, forcing local grocery stores and small supermarkets and beloved local eateries to fight a losing battle for survival. Restaurant owners confess in hushed, desperate tones that they've been forced to cut hours, and even worse, let go of loyal staff simply because the customers have vanished. Behind the gilded, opulent facade of the casinos, the entire shadow economy that keeps the city breathing is withering and dying on the vine. But make no mistake, this isn't just about personal paychecks. The rot has now infiltrated the very core of the public financial system. Clark County has always been dangerously dependent on a river of hotel and casino taxes to fund its budget. Now that this critical revenue stream has slowed to a trickle, vital infrastructure projects and crucial community welfare programs and essential healthcare services have been frozen in their tracks. Nevada's own public financial reports reveal a damning truth. Revenue from so-called recreational taxes plummeted by nearly 8% in 2024 alone. And while that number might not sound shocking on its own, let's be clear. In a city where virtually every single dollar revolves around entertainment, it is the deafening siren of a prolonged economic nightmare. These deep, lasting scars aren't just being etched into financial ledgers. They are being seared into the very soul of the community. The very people who once proudly boasted that Las Vegas was the city that never sleeps now confess to a bone-deep exhaustion, forced to work punishingly long hours just to scrape by. A corrosive doubt is now creeping into every conversation. Does this place, once hailed as the ultimate symbol of the American dream, have any room left for ordinary people? Yet even in this suffocating darkness, a desperate search for an escape route has begun. Corporate behemoths like Hyatt Hotels have launched a so-called Destination Reset initiative, cynically pledging a new focus on sustainable experiences. They're peddling notions of cost transparency, support for local labor, and community investment. But make no mistake, this is not some enlightened business strategy. It is a desperate, last-ditch attempt to regain the public's trust, a currency far more precious than any neon sign on that godforsaken strip. But can these token gestures even begin to mend the economic nightmare that has plagued Las Vegas for so long? And once the city's very soul, a dream built on the promise of generosity, has rotted into a crushing financial burden, what will Las Vegas have left to pass on to the next generation but a legacy of decay? A sickening paradox is unfolding in this desert mirage. The lights are still blindingly bright. The advertisements are a relentless assault on the senses. Yet the haunting spectacle of empty seats, abandoned tables, and half-full flights has become the grim, familiar reality. If before we could blame this void on the absence of international tourists, the truly terrifying truth is now undeniable. Even the loyal domestic tourists, those who once saw Vegas as an annual pilgrimage, are now fleeing. This isn't a sudden collapse. It's a quiet, insidious rot, sending devastating shockwaves through the city's core. The days of families flocking to Vegas for a grand vacation are over. Instead, countless Americans are now deliberately choosing destinations closer to home, seeking refuge in the simple honesty of beaches and national parks. The numbers themselves are a damning indictment. According to 2024 statistics from the National Park Service, visits to national parks in the Southwest skyrocketed by over 9% compared to 2019, all while long-term overnight stays in Las Vegas plummeted. This isn't a mere trend, it's a resounding verdict delivered by the American people. Domestic travelers are recoiling from the predatory glitz of Vegas, choosing authentic, affordable experiences instead. The catastrophic impact of this mass exodus is now crashing down on the local community. When the domestic customers who represent the very lifeblood of annual revenue simply vanish, it is the small businesses and ancillary services that are the first to bleed out. From grocery stores and coffee shops to event service providers, all are reporting crippling double-digit declines in revenue. A silent, terrifying death spiral has begun. Fewer tourists means less consumption, which means fewer jobs, which only serves to make the city even less appealing. In this grim reality, the question is no longer just how to lure back international tourists, but the far more desperate question of how to stop Americans themselves from abandoning the city for good. Pathetic, frantic efforts are now underway. Delta Airlines has forged a pact with hotel chains to dangle cheap fly and stay packages, a hollow promise of discounts if you book the whole trap at once. This is their grand plan to revitalize appeal, a flimsy charade to pretend the Vegas experience can be accessible if they just repackage the greed. However, can these superficial patches ever hope to reverse a trend so deeply etched into the nation's psyche? If even domestic tourists, the supposed sustainable engine of Las Vegas, are abandoning the city in droves, what will be left but a hollowed-out corpse of lights and empty chairs? And more importantly, will the American dream that Vegas once so arrogantly symbolized be remembered as a generous invitation, or as the cruel, fading mirage it has become? Las Vegas was supposed to be the place where light could extinguish all darkness. But today, what remains is not just the skeletal remains of abandoned malls and silent casinos, but a colossal, damning question mark hanging over the future of a city that was once one of the brightest in the world. If Vegas, the self-proclaimed entertainment capital of America, is faltering this badly, what apocalyptic warning does that send to every other community dependent on the fragile whims of tourism and consumption? Are we witnessing the final, agonizing death of an era, or merely a turning point for a city to be reborn from its own ashes? If this story ignites a fire in you, then you must leave a comment with your thoughts. Click like, share this dire warning, and do not forget to subscribe to join us on our next Critical Investigations. The content in this video is built upon public sources, official reports, and aggregated assessments. Some details presented are illustrative, reflecting a broader social perspective, not definitive statements or absolute truths. This video is not intended to assign blame to any single individual, organization, or government. Our objective is to provoke critical thought, to carve out a space for urgent dialogue, and to offer our audience a more stark, multifaceted picture of the issues at hand at this critical juncture.